The cook no one noticed. The ship drifted through the dark of space, metal walls shaking every time the engines changed speed. Inside the long hallways, soldiers of the alien crew walked with pride. They wore armor, carried plasma rifles, and spoke loudly about their victories. To them, strength was everything. And then there was the cook. He wore no armor. He carried no gun. His name was Daniel, a human. To the aliens, he was nothing more than a servant in the kitchen. His job was simple: cut vegetables, stir soups, and serve food. When the soldiers laughed, they often laughed at him. Human. Weak, one soldier said, pointing at Daniel while he cleaned a pan. He fights only with spoons. The others laughed, the sound echoing through the mess hall. Daniel did not answer. He never answered. He only kept working, his face calm, his eyes quiet. He looked down at his hands as he washed the knife he used every day. But the knife was not like the others in the kitchen. It was longer, heavier, sharpened so fine that light seemed to slide off its edge. No alien noticed the difference. To them, a knife was a knife. But when Daniel held it, there was something strange about the way he moved. His hand was steady. His grip was strong, almost too strong for a man who only cooked food. The youngest alien recruit once walked past the kitchen and stopped. He stared at Daniel, sharpening the blade. The sound was slow, dangerous sh-h-k. She-h-k. The recruit whispered to his friend. That knife, it does not sound like a kitchen knife. His friend laughed nervously. Do not be foolish. He is only a cook. Humans are harmless. But still, the sound stayed in their heads like an echo. Daniel said nothing. He kept sharpening. He kept waiting. The captain of the alien ship, a tall officer with silver skin and a voice like stone, often ignored the human. In his reports to high command, he wrote only one line about Daniel. The human serves food, nothing more. Yet sometimes, when the captain walked past the kitchen, he paused. He saw Daniel cutting meat with perfect precision, every slice. The same, every move exact. No hesitation, no mistake. A soldier could not be more disciplined with a weapon, and the captain felt a strange chill, though he never spoke of it. The days passed. The ship continued its journey through empty space. The soldiers trained in the barracks, shooting targets, practicing combat drills. Daniel stayed in the kitchen, silent, watching, listening. One evening, the crew sat in the mess hall, boasting about their battles. We crushed a raider fleet in only 10 minutes, one said proudly. They ran when they saw our weapons, another added, and their eyes turned to Daniel, carrying a tray of food. One soldier smirked. And what about you, human? What battles have you won? Did you kill carrots and onions today? A hall filled with laughter. Even the captain allowed himself a small smile. Daniel set down the tray quietly. His expression never changed. He looked at the soldier, then at the knife in his hand. For a moment, there was silence, thick, heavy silence. Then Daniel spoke for the first time in days. I don't fight with carrots. The soldiers stopped laughing. A few shifted uncomfortably. The way he said it calm, low, final made the room colder. But before anyone could ask more, Daniel turned back to the kitchen. He did not explain. He did not need to. That night, while the crew slept, Daniel sat alone at the small kitchen table. He cleaned the blade slowly, his reflection glinting on the steel. His hands moved like a man remembering something old, something heavy far away. In the dark of space, a shadow followed the ship. Unknown raiders watched, waiting for the right time to strike. But inside the ship, no one knew. Not yet. Only the cook sat awake. Only he sharpened his knife. The aliens thought they understood humans. To them, humans were weak, soft, and unimportant. But what they did not see What they had never asked was why Daniel's hands carried scars. Why his eyes sometimes looked far away, as if seeing ghosts. Why his knife was too sharp for food. To them, he was invisible. A cook. Nothing more. But soon, very soon, the truth would be known. And when it came, they would never laugh at him again. The war that found him, the alien ship floated through quiet space, stars burning like tiny fires in the dark. The crew relaxed after their evening meal, laughing, talking, playing games. To them, danger felt far away. They believed their guns, their armor, their technology could stop any threat. Only Daniel, the human cook, felt different. He was in the kitchen, washing his knife, when the warning siren screamed. The sound tore through the ship like a blade. Soldiers jumped to their feet, eyes wide. The captain's voice came over the comms. Raiders! Battle stations! The soldiers ran, boots hammering against the metal floor. Plasma rifles were grabbed. Armor was locked in place. The once proud crew now looked tense, shadows of fear in their eyes. But Daniel stayed where he was, standing in the kitchen doorway, holding the knife. His expression never changed. The ship shook as enemy fire slammed into the hull. Sparks fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered. The air smelled of smoke and burning metal. The raiders boarded quickly. They were brutal creatures, tall, armored with jagged weapons. They cut through doors, flooding the corridors with violence. Alien. Soldiers of the crew tried to fight, but the raiders were fast, merciless. Screams echoed through the halls. The once proud warriors began to fall. Hold the line, the captain shouted. But the line was already breaking. In the middle of this chaos, a young recruit ran past the kitchen and shouted at Daniel. Cook, hide. You're no fighter, stay down. Daniel looked at him calmly. His hand tightened around the knife. No, he said simply. The battle raged on. In the mess hall, a group of raiders cornered 3 alien crew members. They raised their blades, ready to strike. Then a shadow moved behind them. It was Daniel. He stepped silently, almost too silently, into the room. His knife gleamed under the red emergency lights. In one swift motion, he struck. The blade cut clean, sharp, final. A raider fell without a sound. The others turned, shocked. They had expected fear. They found death. Daniel moved fast, faster than anyone thought possible. His strikes were precise, each motion like he had done it 1,000 times before. He wasted no energy, made no noise. Only the sound of steel cutting through flesh. The alien crew watched in frozen silence as the cook killed 3 raiders. In seconds, blood dripped from the blade, not food, but enemies. Word spread quickly. Soldiers whispered as they fought. The human, he fights. He killed them with only a knife. He is no cook. The captain himself saw Daniel fight in a corridor, raiders falling one by one. His movements were cold, controlled, terrifying. He did not fight like a soldier. He fought like a man who had survived battles too cruel to name. For the first time, the captain felt a shiver. The raider commander entered the ship, tall and armored in black. His voice roared through the halls. Surrender or die. The alien crew looked broken, their strength fading. Many wanted to give up, but Daniel stepped forward. His uniform was simple, stained with blood. His knife dripped red. His eyes, calm and sharp, locked on the commander. The raider commander laughed. A cook? They send me a cook? Daniel said nothing. He only raised the knife, and the commander's smile faded. There was something in the human silence, something more dangerous than all the crew's rifles combined. The raiders attacked again, harder, stronger. But wherever Daniel went, the line held. The aliens followed him, their fear turning into respect. He fought with precision, showing them where to stand, when to strike. He did not command like an officer. He guided like a survivor. Still, the battle was not won. The raiders pulled back, but not in defeat. They retreated with a promise, their commander's voice echoing through the coms. This is not over. We will return with more, and then your ship will burn. Silence filled the corridors once the enemy was gone. Bodies lay broken, smoke drifted through the air. The crew, shaking, looked at Daniel. The captain stepped forward slowly. His voice was rough, filled with disbelief. What are you? Daniel cleaned his knife on a torn piece of cloth. He did not look at the captain. He only whispered, just someone who remembers how to fight. The crew stared at him, fear and awe mixing in their eyes. The human cook had become something else, something none of them could ignore. The knife's true purpose, the ship was quiet after the attack, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. Smoke still drifted through the halls. The floor was stained with blood, both alien and raider. The surviving crew moved slowly, speaking in whispers. Their proud voices were gone. Now, when they looked around the ship, they remembered the fight. And they remembered the cook. Daniel. He was back in the kitchen. His knife lay on the table, cleaned, sharp, shining once more. His hands moved with care, wiping every trace of blood. It was the same way he had once prepared food, but now everyone knew the knife had another purpose. The alien captain entered the kitchen. He was a tall figure, his silver skin scratched from battle. He studied Daniel for a long time before. Speaking, "You saved us," the captain said, his voice low. Daniel did not answer. "You are no cook. What are you, human?" Daniel looked up slowly. His eyes were calm, but they carried a weight the captain could not understand. He said only 6 words. The knife was never for food. The captain frowned. He wanted to ask more, but the way Daniel spoke, the way he held that blade, made his chest tighten with unease. Later, in the mess hall, the crew gathered. They were tired, injured, but their eyes were full of questions. The youngest recruit finally asked what everyone wanted to know. "Why do you fight like that? Where did you learn?" Daniel stood in the center of the room, his hands resting on the table. For a long time, he was silent. Then, slowly, he spoke. "Humans, we don't grow up in peace. We don't live on soft worlds. Our home is dangerous, unforgiving. We had to fight to survive against the wild, against each other, against the darkness of our own kind." He lifted the knife and held it up for them to see. Its edge caught the dim light, gleaming cold. "This knife, I carried it before I was a cook, before I worked on ships. It has taken lives before, many lives. I told myself I would never use it again, that I would only cut food with it, that I would leave war behind." He paused. The crew leaned closer, listening. "But war," Daniel whispered, "always finds us." The aliens stared at him, their throats dry. For the first time, they understood something about humans. Weakness was only what you saw on the outside. Inside, there was something harder than steel. One soldier spoke. "You fought like 10 of us together. How can one human do this?" Daniel's gaze darkened, because humans remember pain, and we turn it into strength. The crew shivered. They had mocked him once, but now not a single one laughed. Some even avoided his eyes, as if afraid of what they might see. Suddenly, alarms blared again. The red lights flashed. The captain's voice rang out through the comms. "Scanners detect multiple ships. The raiders are returning." Fear spread instantly. The crew had barely survived the first fight. If more enemies came, they would surely be destroyed. The soldiers looked at their rifles with shaking hands. No one spoke. No one believed they could win, but Daniel stepped forward. His voice cut through the fear like his blade cut through flesh. Listen to me. The room went silent. Even the captain turned to hear him. They will come again, stronger. If you fight like before, you will die. But if you fight with me, if you fight like humans fight, then maybe we live. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. Follow a cook into battle? It sounded insane. And yet, they remembered the way he had fought. They remembered the raiders falling like shadows under his knife. Daniel laid the knife on the table. This blade is not a kitchen tool. It is a weapon. A reminder. On Earth, weapons are not just machines. They are a part of us. They carry memory, and they carry warning. This one. He touched the steel gently. It was meant for war. And now, war has found us again. He looked up at them, his voice cold and steady. You want to live? Learn from me. There was silence, then slowly, one by one, the crew nodded. The captain gave a short, firm answer. Teach us. Daniel picked up the knife, sliding it back into its sheath. His eyes were sharp, focused, deadly. Then listen carefully, he said, because next time, they will come to finish us. And if we are not ready, they will succeed. In the corner, the youngest recruit whispered to his friend, his voice shaking. He was never a cook. He was always something else. The friend nodded, staring at Daniel's shadow. Yes, a human, and that is worse than any weapon. The ship shook again as the enemy fleet closed in. The crew rushed to prepare. But this time, they were not looking to their captain for courage. They were looking at the cook with the knife that was never for cooking. Fear turns into respect. The raiders were closing in. The ship's sensors screamed warnings, and red lights flashed across every corridor. The alien crew rushed to prepare for battle, but their hands still trembled. Their confidence had been broken in the last fight. Only one figure moved without fear. Daniel, the cook. The human dot, he stood in the center of the mess hall, his knife resting in his hand, his voice calm but sharp. You are soldiers, Daniel said to them. But you fight like soldiers who have never been tested. You fight to win quickly. Humans, we fight to survive. That is the difference. The captain frowned. Survive? What do you mean? Daniel's eyes were cold, but steady. Survival means fighting even when victory is gone. It means using what you have, not what you wish you had. It means never giving up, even if the cost is your blood. The crew fell silent. None of them had ever heard words like that. When the alarms roared again, Daniel acted fast. He grabbed empty trays, broken chairs, even loose pipes from the kitchen. He handed them to the crew. These are not weapons, one soldier said, confused. They are now, Daniel answered Dot. He showed them how to use the trays as shields, how to strike with the pipes like clubs, how to move in tight corridors where the enemy's numbers meant nothing. Your rifles will run out of charge, he told them. But steel, wood, or your own fists will never run out. Learn to use everything. The aliens hesitated at first, but as Daniel moved, demonstrating each strike with perfect control, they saw something in him: confidence, power, certainty. Slowly, they copied him. And for the first time, they felt something strange. Hope got the raiders boarded again. The doors shook under the force of their blades. The crew stood ready, their new weapons gripped tight. They looked at Daniel, who stood at the front, knife gleaming. The door exploded open. Raiders stormed in with roars, armored and armed. The aliens almost faltered until Daniel charged first. He moved like lightning, his knife flashing, his strikes clean and final. He didn't hesitate. He didn't retreat. And the crew followed. They fought harder than before, using the tricks Daniel taught them. A tray blocked a strike. A pipe smashed into an enemy's face. Even when rifles overheated, the crew kept fighting. They fought like humans, messy, brutal, desperate, and it worked. The raiders, who had expected an easy slaughter, found themselves pushed back. They growled in anger, confused at how the weak crew suddenly resisted so fiercely. In the middle of the battle, the captain watched Daniel. Every move was precise, as if he had seen this same fight 100 times before. The knife seemed like an extension of his body. There was no wasted motion, no panic. Only calm, sharp death. The captain whispered under his breath, "He is not a soldier. He is something worse." Hours passed. The corridors were filled with fire, smoke, and screams. The raiders were not defeated, but they were slowed, bleeding, forced to pull back again. When the battle ended, the crew collapsed against the walls, exhausted but alive. For the first time, they had fought and held the line. And it was because of the cook. The youngest recruit, panting heavily, looked at Daniel with wide eyes. You saved us again. How do you never fall? How do you never break?" Daniel wiped his blade clean, his voice calm. "I have broken before. That is why I know how not to break now." The recruit didn't fully understand, but he felt something he had never felt toward a human before. Respect. Later, the captain gathered the crew. His voice was heavy, but strong. "Owe our lives to him. To the one we mocked, ignored, and called useless. We laughed at his knife. Now we know it better than any weapon we carry." All eyes turned to Daniel. He said nothing, but the silence was louder than any speech. The crew lowered their heads slightly, not out of fear anymore, but out of respect. But outside the ship, in the cold dark of space, the raiders were not gone. Their fleet was growing. The commander who had promised destruction was gathering more forces. Next time, they would not test. Next time, they would come to kill every last one of them. And deep in the mess hall, Daniel sat alone, sharpening his blade again. The sound echoed, "Shh, HK." She, K. The crew no longer mistook it for kitchen work. They knew now that knife had never been for cooking. It had always been waiting for this. The enemy learns fear the raider. Fleet surrounded the ship like wolves circling a wounded prey. Dozens of enemy ships hung in the void, their weapons charged, their commanders confident. Inside, the alien crew felt their courage shaking again. They had survived the last 2 fights, but the enemy was stronger now, larger. The air was thick with dread. Only one man did not fear. Daniel, the human cook. He stood in the war room beside the captain, his knife sheathed at his side. The others looked at star maps, numbers, firepower. Daniel looked at the shadows in the corner of the room, silent, waiting. Finally, the captain spoke, his voice almost breaking. "We cannot win, not against so many." The crew lowered their heads. Some whispered prayers. Others cursed their fate, but Daniel lifted his eyes. His voice was calm, yet it carried through the room. "You think survival is about numbers. It is not. Survival is about will." The crew turned to him. His words sounded strange, but his eyes were steady, and that steadiness made them listen. When the enemy boarded again, they came in greater numbers than ever before. The raider commander himself led the charge, his armor black, his blade sharp as death. The corridors shook as the fight began. The crew struggled to hold, but this time, the raiders pushed harder, faster, crueler. The aliens began to falter, until Daniel moved. He leapt into the fray, his knife flashing under the red lights. Each strike was clean, fast, final. Raiders fell one by one, their bodies dropping with heavy THUD. The commander growled when he saw it. The cook again. But this time, the raiders hesitated. Their eyes shifted. Their steps slowed. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they found themselves hunted. The youngest recruit, fighting nearby, noticed it first. "They are afraid of him," he gasped. And it was true. The raiders were bigger, stronger, armored, but none of that mattered against the human's blade. Every time Daniel stepped forward, they stepped back. Every time he raised the knife, their courage weakened. The crew saw it too. Their fear began to fade, replaced by something new. Power. They shouted louder, fought harder. For the first time, they believed they could win, because the enemy was learning fear. The raider commander roared in anger. He stormed forward, his huge weapon raised high. He pointed at Daniel. "You are no soldier. You are no warrior. You are only a man with a knife." Daniel turned his calm gaze on him. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost like a smile. "And yet, you are afraid of me." The words cut sharper than his blade. The commander's face twisted in rage. The two clashed in the middle of the corridor. Steel against steel, knife against massive warblade. Sparks flew with every strike. The crew watched, barely breathing. Daniel was smaller, weaker in strength, but faster, sharper, precise. His movements were like shadows, slipping past heavy swings, cutting quick and deep. The commander roared, swinging harder, but every miss only fueled his anger. And every strike Daniel made only fueled his fear. For the first time in his life, the raider commander felt the cold truth. This human fought not to win, but to survive. And survival was deadlier than conquest. The fight raged until finally, Daniel's blade slipped past the commander's guard. A single cut, deep and perfect, across his armor. Blood poured. The commander stumbled back, growling in disbelief. "Impossible. You are just a cook." Daniel's voice was quiet, almost like a whisper. "No, I am human." The words froze the corridor. Even the raiders who still fought lowered their weapons, their eyes wide, because they felt it now. Fear. The enemy began to retreat, dragging their wounded commander with them. For the first time, the proud raiders backed away from prey. The crew of the ship stood stunned. They looked at Daniel not with doubt, not with mockery, but with awe. He had turned their fear into strength, and the enemy's strength into fear. Captain stepped forward slowly, his voice heavy with respect. "You did what no weapon could do. You broke them." Daniel cleaned his knife again, his eyes calm. "They are not broken. Not yet. They will return, angrier, hungrier. Fear will not stop them forever." He slid the knife back into its sheath. But it is a start. That night, as the crew repaired the ship, whispers spread through every corner. "The cook fights like a demon." No, not a demon. Something worse. A human. And in the dark of space, the raider commander sat bleeding on his ship, his mind racing. He had fought many enemies in his life. He had crushed empires, burned fleets, but never not once had. He felt fear until he faced a man with nothing but a knife. The human stands alone. The raider fleet did not leave. They circled the wounded ship like vultures, waiting for the moment to strike. The crew worked day and night, repairing systems, patching hulls, and recharging weapons. But everyone knew the truth. They could not survive the next attack. In the war room, the crew argued. Voices rose full of fear. We should run. There is nowhere to run. We should surrender. They will not accept surrender. The captain slammed his fist on the table. Enough. If we fight again, we die. If we run, we die. We are trapped. Silence filled the room. Faces turned. Pale, but in the corner, Daniel stood quietly, sharpening his knife. Shh, shh, shik. The sound cut through their despair. Finally, the youngest recruit asked, his voice small, "Cook, what do we do?" Daniel looked up slowly. His eyes were calm, steady, unbroken. "We fight," the crew groaned. Some lowered their heads. Hopeless. Others clenched their fists in anger. "Fight? Against a whole fleet?" One soldier shouted. "Are you insane?" Another hissed. "Even you cannot kill them all," the captain said quietly. Daniel sheathed his knife and stepped forward. "No, I cannot kill them all, but I can kill enough. And if I stand, you can stand too." The words were simple, but the way he spoke, the certainty in his voice, made the crew fall silent. When the next attack came, it was like thunder. Dozens of raider ships fired at once, shaking the vessel. The hull screamed, alarms roared, and the corridors filled with smoke. Raiders boarded in waves, pouring through breaches, armored and armed. The crew faltered. Some froze, some nearly dropped their weapons. The fear was too heavy. And then they saw him. Daniel. He stood alone at the front line, knife in hand, shoulders straight. The firelight flickered across his face, and in his calm eyes there was no fear. He charged first. The fight was chaos. Raiders stormed in, blades clashing, rifles firing. But Daniel cut through them like a shadow with teeth. Every step he took was a strike. Every strike was final. The crew hesitated at first, but then they remembered his words. "If I stand, you can stand too." And so they stood. One by one, they lifted their weapons, their makeshift shields, their pipes, and their courage. They followed the human. The corridors shook with the clash of war. The crew screamed, not in fear, but in fury. For the first time, they fought as if survival was possible. And it was Daniel who showed them how. At one point, the raiders pushed hard. They broke through the line. Soldiers fell back, choking in fear, but Daniel did not. He planted himself in the middle of the corridor, blood dripping from his arm, knife ready. "Come," he whispered. The raiders slowed. Even with their numbers, even with their armor, they hesitated, because they remembered. They remembered what one human could do. The commander roared, forcing them forward. But as they charged, Daniel moved, fast, sharp, relentless. His blade cut through their courage as much as their flesh. The crew, watching, felt strength fill their bones again. They rushed forward, screaming, striking, refusing to fall. Hours passed. The ship was burning. Bodies covered the corridors. The crew was exhausted, broken, bleeding. But still Daniel stood. He was covered in cuts, his uniform torn, his breath heavy. Yet his grip on the knife never loosened. His eyes never dimmed. And when the raiders saw him, still alive, still standing, they began to falter. Their war cries grew weaker. Their steps slowed. Their fear returned. In the war room, the captain watched the battle feed. His chest tightened. He fights like he carries all of humanity inside him. The captain whispered. The youngest recruit, standing nearby, answered softly, "Maybe he does." Finally, the raider commander gave the order to retreat. His forces pulled back, dragging their dead and wounded. For the third time, they had failed to break the crew. The corridors grew silent, filled only with the heavy breathing of survivors. The crew looked at Daniel. He stood in the middle of the mess of blood and fire, his knife dripping, his chest rising slowly. He was alone, yet he was unbroken. The captain approached him, voice heavy with respect. "You carried us when we could not stand. You fought when we wanted to surrender. You are more than a cook." Daniel wiped his blade clean, sheathing it. Once more, his voice was quiet, but sharp. "No, I am still a cook, but the knife was never for cooking." The crew said nothing. They only bowed their heads, not in fear, but in respect. because now they understood. A human could stand alone. And when he did, no enemy could stand against him. The final lesson: the crew had survived 3 battles. Against all odds, they still lived. But survival came with a price. Their ship was torn apart. Their weapons were nearly gone. Their bodies were weak, their spirits heavy. And outside, the raider fleet grew larger. Reinforcements had come. Dozens more ships now circled them, their weapons glowing. The crew gathered in silence, their faces pale. Even after all they had endured, this felt like the end. The captain looked at Daniel, the cook who had saved them again and again. His voice was quiet, almost broken. "This time, even you cannot carry us through." Daniel stood with his knife at his side. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at the captain, then at the crew. "Maybe not," he admitted. "But if I fall, I will fall teaching them one last lesson." The crew stared, confused. What lesson? Daniel's voice was low, steady, unshaken. "The lesson every human learns on a world that tried to kill us. The lesson no enemy ever forgets. Fear the survivor, not the soldier." The alarm screamed. The final wave began. Raiders stormed aboard, more than ever before, their armor shining, their blades raised. The ship shook under the weight of the chew. Assault. The crew raised their weapons weakly, but they were tired, too tired. Their hands shook. Some thought of giving up until they saw Daniel. He walked forward alone, his steps slow but steady, his knife catching the light. His body was wounded, his uniform torn, but his eyes burned with fire, and the crew remembered. If he stood, they could stand. The battle was chaos. Raiders poured in like a flood, screaming their war cries. But Daniel's blade was faster. His strikes were sharp, clean, merciless. He moved like a shadow of death, cutting through armored giants as if they were nothing. The raiders had numbers. They had power. But with every swing of his knife, their fear grew. The commander roared in rage and stepped forward. His armor was blackened, scarred from their last duel. His eyes burned with hate. "This ends today, human," he shouted. Daniel lifted his blade. His voice was calm. "Yes, it ends." The two clashed in the middle of the burning corridor. Steel against steel. Sparks exploded with every strike. The commander swung heavy and brutal, each blow enough to crush a normal man. But Daniel was not normal. He was human. He slipped past the strikes, his blade finding cracks in armor, his movements sharp and fast. Each cut weakened the commander. Each dodge made his rage grow. The crew and raiders alike stopped fighting, their eyes locked on the duel. They saw strength against survival, fury against calm, soldier against human. And slowly they realized which was stronger. At last, the commander staggered, his weapon slipping from his hand. Blood dripped from his wounds, his breathing heavy. He stared at Daniel with disbelief. You are not a soldier." "What are you?" Daniel's eyes were cold, his voice sharp. "I am what you fear most. I am human." With one final strike, his knife cut true. The commander fell, crashing to the ground. Silence filled the corridor. Then the raiders, the proud conquerors, the merciless hunters, stepped back, their eyes wide, their courage gone. They saw their leader dead at the hands of a man they had mocked, a man they had underestimated, a man they had feared. And without a word, they fled. The fleet outside scattered, retreating into the dark. The battle was over. The crew stood frozen, their chests heaving. Slowly, they turned toward Daniel. He was still standing, though blood stained his uniform, his knife dripping. He looked at them, his expression calm. "You survived," he said simply. The youngest recruit, his eyes wide, whispered, "No." We survived because of you. Daniel shook his head. No, you survived. Because you learned. You learned what it means to fight when all hope is gone. That is the human way. That is the final lesson. The crew lowered their heads, not in fear, but in deep respect. They knew now. They had seen it with their own eyes. A human was never. Just what they seemed. Even a cook with a knife could shatter empires. Asterisk the and.